Hi everyone, this is Ali Hussein Kasim of AliTalksTech. In this week's weekly roundup, I am focusing on only one subject, the most important piece of policy and potential regulatory framework for the fintech ecosystem in the last couple of years. And I'm talking about the crypto bill, the Kenya crypto bill, or as it's officially known, the Kenya Virtual Asset Service Providers Bill. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a crisis. If you're not aware, this bill has been withdrawn from Parliament because of a couple of issues that the industry has raised. Now, here's the $1 trillion question, and I mean $1 trillion question. How did it get here? How did it get to a point where Parliament has been forced to withdraw the bill? I'll come to that in a minute. But let's look at some of the things that have made Kenya, some of the critical issues from a policy and regulatory framework that has made Kenya a fintech leader to be reckoned with, not just in Kenya, not just in Africa, but globally. Very quickly, I want to speak to some historical context. Where do I start better than the learnings from M-Pesa's regulatory success? The Central Bank of Kenya's Test and Learn Masterclass. Let's go back to 2007, when Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, the then central bank governor, allowed M-Pesa to launch. And he famously said that the Central Bank of Kenya would regulate M-Pesa once it understood what it was regulating. Let me repeat this very crucially. And this is in history books. Professor Njuguna Ndung'u simply said, we'll allow M-Pesa to operate, we'll wait and see, we'll review, we will monitor, but we will regulate M-Pesa once we understand what we are regulating. This wasn't regulatory negligence, ladies and gentlemen. It was visionary leadership that created the template for responsible innovation. Again, let me repeat this. This was not regulatory ignorance or negligence. This was visionary leadership that created the template for responsible innovation. These are the key success factors. One, and I'm talking about key success factors for the fintech ecosystem in Kenya and for M-Pesa in particular. Regulatory humility. Let me repeat that again. Regulatory humility. The central bank then acknowledged one thing, the limits of its understanding, and chose to learn over prohibition. Number two, iterative oversight. Monthly reporting requirements allow real-time monitoring without stifling innovation. Number three, multi-agency coordination. CBK worked with the Communications Authority to ensure comprehensive oversight. Now, for those of you who may not be aware, the reason why the Communications Authority came in at that particular time is that Safaricom was licensed and regulated by the Communications Authority, not the central bank. But mobile money started to sort of step into the boundaries of the Central Bank of Kenya when it comes to money. So instead of these two regulators banging heads, they chose to cooperate. And the results, guys, we can see the results. The other one is consumer protection. Trust accounts were created at banks because we were talking about money. And mobile money was something that was not really appreciated or really understood by ourselves in the fintech ecosystem, or even by the policymakers and regulators. That's why the test and learn perspective. So trust accounts created that comfort with the regulators, and created transaction limits that protected users while allowing growth. Here are the results that speak for themselves. With that foresight and that humility that was shown by policymakers and regulators at that time, financial inclusion grew from 26.7% in 2006 to 82.9% by 2019. Let me tell you guys something. There's some people who now brush aside and talk about financial inclusion with derision and exasperation, or this is a Western kind of thing. We don't care about financial inclusion. Again, guys, let me tell you something. Stop being arrogant. I'm sorry. Stop being arrogant. This is something that the industry and policymakers and regulators worked together. Financial inclusion grew by 26.7% in 2006 to 82.9% by 2019. That's why some people can be arrogant today and say financial inclusion is not something we need to discuss. Over 237,637 agents serving 30.5 million active Kenyans by 2020. That was 5 years ago. Let's talk about today. Banks have gotten into agency banking. SACCOs have gotten into agency banking, all on the back of all the work that was done in 2007. There's a German philosopher who once said, I forget his name, who once said, we learn from history that we never learn from history. We have a saying in Kiswahili, and it goes like this: ukiona kinaolea, jua kimeundwa. And it simply refers to the fact that when we see things that are working today, when you see a ship sailing in the high seas, you don't know what has gone into building that ship. Let's not forget history. Let's not forget how we got here. We are a global leader in mobile money and in fintech. Let's protect that. Let's protect that with all we can. Daily transactions are now over 13 billion shillings, processing seamlessly and growing. We're now talking about bigger things. We're talking about PesaLink. We're talking about faster payment platforms. We're talking about open finance. How would we even be talking about these things if those giants at that time did not do what they were required to do? Okay. So let's look at the regulatory evolution framework for M-Pesa. M-Pesa succeeded through 5 generations of regulatory adoption. Number 1, generation 1 rather, basic money transfer with risk mitigation. Number 2, generation 2, bank integration and deposit building. Generation 3, credit services and collateral innovation. Generation 4, cross-border payments and remittances. Generation 5, fintech collaboration and ecosystem expansion. Today, we are seeing M-Pesa having conversations with PesaLink about how to integrate and how to cross-pollinate. M-Pesa has the Daraja platform, which has actually made fintech grow phenomenally that it has grown to date. The Daraja platform is an API platform that 300,000 engineers plug into this platform. This evolutionary approach, ladies and gentlemen, balancing innovation with systemic risk management, is precisely what Kenya needs with virtual assets. How have we forgotten these lessons? How have we forgotten these lessons, guys? Let me go to international lessons, and let me pick 2 countries, South Africa and Nigeria. Their journey through regulatory implementation of cryptocurrencies. Let me start with South Africa. South Africa's crypto regulatory journey offers both warnings and best practices. Let's look at the timeline. 2014, joint user alert warning of risks, no regulatory framework. 2020, FSCA, their financial regulator, public consultation on crypto asset classification. Let me repeat that. Public consultation on crypto asset classification. 2022, crypto assets declared financial products under the FAIS Act. 2025, 248 CSP licenses approved from 420 applications, the largest in Africa and probably the largest in most countries in the world. Kudos to South Africa for taking this step-by-step approach involving industry to make sure that they have the right policies and regulatory frameworks in place. What are the key success factors for South Africa? First, implementation. The gradual integration into existing financial frameworks rather than creating new legislation. I love that. Let me repeat this, guys. First, implementation. Gradual integration into existing financial frameworks rather than creating new legislation. Industry consultation. Extensive stakeholder engagement before implementation. Clear licensing requirements. The transparent FSP licensing process with defined timelines. Anti-money laundering, CFT, that's, to do with terrorism financing, AML, CFT integrations, robust anti-money laundering compliance through FIC registration. So what's the current status in South Africa? South Africa has emerged as Africa's leading crypto jurisdiction, attracting institutional investment while maintaining consumer protection. Now, guys, let me just ask you this. This is the home of M-Pesa for FSEC. How have we fallen behind? How? Because some people are afraid that this new fangled stuff is going to, do what? Let's put the country first, guys. Let's put the country first. Everything else will trickle down from there. Now let's look at Nigeria's lessons. The perils of policy inconsistency. Let me repeat that. The perils of policy inconsistency. This is Nigeria. Nigeria's experience serves as a cautionary tale of regulatory volatility. The roller coaster timeline. 2020, the Securities and Exchange Commission of Nigeria recognizes cryptocurrencies as legitimate assets. In 2021, the Central Bank of Nigeria bans banks from crypto transactions, citing MLTF risks. Guys, this thing just gives people headaches. You have the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission of Nigeria, saying we recognize cryptocurrencies. Then the same government, through the Central Bank of Nigeria, says, wait, if we catch you dealing cryptocurrencies, utaona cha mtema kuni. Then, Money Laundering Act includes VASPs as financial institutions. 2023, Central Bank of Nigeria reverses position, issues VASP banking guidelines. What are the critical lessons here? Regulatory uncertainty costs. 2021 ban drove activity underground, reducing oversight capacity. I always say that when water is trickling down a river and you block it, what happens? It finds the path of least resistance. It will come down eventually. You put whatever you want to put. You put a dam, you put roadblocks. Eventually it will trickle through. It will find a way. All right? And that's exactly what happened in Nigeria. Industry engagement matters. There was very limited stakeholder consultation, which led to impractical policies. So here we are, policymakers and regulators deciding that they know better than the industry. That's the problem. That's the problem. So I am always asking, and I know this is coming out as abrasive, but sometimes we just need to say it as it is. Okay? There's an industry. Why are you not engaging with the industry? Why do you sit in your ivory towers and think that you know the industry? Or there is potential state capture, one or two players in the industry deciding they want to capture the whole market. Not going to work, guys. Just engage people. Industry engagement matters. Very, very critical. Now, let me come to Kenya's VASP Bill crisis, because it's a crisis. You've worked with this bill. We've had limited regulatory engagement. My team at the the Association of Fintechs in Kenya were called by Treasury, and we put in our recommendations. Next thing we know, we have a bill. There's no feedback loop. So you're almost wondering, why were we called in the first place? Even if you said our ideas were not good enough, can we communicate? And here's the other thing that I keep on saying about policymakers and regulators. And I guess as leaders, just three things, guys. Communicate, communicate, communicate. I always say even no is an answer. We don't like what you've said. These are the reasons why, right? We're here to serve the people of Kenya as leaders. Now, so if we are not engaging them, who are we serving? Ourselves? The governance breakdown. The Kenya's VASP Bill has been paused following public outcry over three critical governance failures. 1. Compromised independence. The Virtual Asset Chamber of Commerce, which allegedly receives substantial support from one player in the industry, a global player, has been granted voting seats on the VARA regulatory board despite clear conflict of interest. Risk of regulations favoring global exchanges over local innovation. We're in one industry. We work with policymakers and regulators, not just in Kenya, across the continent and beyond. We work with fintech players globally. So we're not saying favor anybody. We're just saying create a level playing field. 2, weak technical expertise requirements. The board qualifications limited to vague experience in law, finance, or technology, no guaranteed technical depth in virtual assets or blockchain technology. Risk of capture by complexity, where a board cannot challenge industry insiders. Guys, these are basic governance issues. If you have a board that has no clue, or the majority of a board that has no clue in the business that they are supposed to be policing and regulating or managing, what do you think the result is going to be? Political appointment process. The president and the cabinet secretary hold primary appointment power. No transparent merit-based selection process. Risk of patronage over competence in critical technical roles. Our international reputation as Africa's fintech center and fintech leader is at stake. Industry experts have warned that compromised governance could 1. Keep Kenya on the FATF grey list indefinitely, deter international investment and partnerships, undermine Kenya's position as Africa's fintech leader. The constitutional imperative, ladies and gentlemen, multi-stakeholder engagement. Kenya's legal framework for participation. Our constitution is very clear. We have mandates that include inclusive governance across multiple provisions. The people have the sovereign power. Ultimately, the public participation as national value and governance, all embedded in our constitution. Parliament must facilitate public participation. And I mean true public participation, not the one of ticking the box. It's very, very crucial, ladies and gentlemen, that we also follow best practices in financial regulation. The global experiences show us effective stakeholder engagement requires 1, early and continuous consultation. Let me repeat this. It's not just about public participation and public involvement and engaging stakeholders. We must have early and continuous consultation. Diverse representation, including consumers, industry players, civil society, and technical experts. 3, transparent processes. Clear documentation of input received and decisions made. Feedback mechanisms demonstrating how stakeholder input has influenced final outcomes. There's a business case for inclusive regulation, guys. Innovation benefits. Access to market intelligence and practical implementation insights, early identification of unintended consequences, enhanced regulatory compliance through stakeholder buy-in, and reduced implementation costs through collaborative design. Risk mitigation, prevention of regulatory capture through diverse input, enhanced public trust and legitimacy, reduced litigation and policy reversal risks, stronger international reputation and partnerships. What's the path forward, ladies and gentlemen? I have a couple of things I would like to make suggestions on. Restructure VARA's governance. This must include deep and transparent industry engagement. 2, strengthen stakeholder engagement. Let's relaunch this comprehensive public participation process. And I don't think 30 days are enough. So my hope and prayer is that we take, at the barest minimum, 90 days. Establish technical advisory committee with diverse representation. Create formal industry feedback mechanisms. We have learned, guys. So let's not get back there. Ensure constitutional compliance review. Medium term, benchmark against best practices. Adopt the Gibraltar-style technical expert requirements. Implement Singapore's balanced innovation compliance approach. Establish UAE-style independent regulatory structures. Create clear capital requirements and operational standards. For example, the current capital requirements basically is going to snuff out many local players. What are we doing? This is our country, guys. Yeah. The first and foremost, we must take care of Kenyans' interests, not global interests. I'm not saying we shouldn't look at global interests, no, but this is our country, right? So we must give preference to Kenyan interests, and I have no apologies to make about that. Build institutional capacity. Invest in policy makers and regulator training and technical expertise. This must be a continuous process. Establish regulatory sandboxes for controlled innovation. And I know this has been done very well by the Capital Markets Authority, and kudos for that. Create clear licensing pathways and timelines. Develop consumer protection and dispute resolution mechanisms. Long term, cement Kenya's position as a leader in fintech in general and crypto in particular. Establish Pan-African regulatory cooperation frameworks. Look, we already have some positions to look at and learn from. Ghana and Rwanda announced a very clear cooperation through their fintech passporting framework. Create centers of excellence for digital asset regulation. Attract international fintech investment and innovation. Maintain leadership in financial inclusion and innovation. So, call to action. We must defend Kenya's digital future. The VASP Bill, as it is not just about cryptocurrency regulation. It's about the soul of Kenya's governance. It's about protecting our leadership in fintech and financial services. So we stand at a crossroads, ladies and gentlemen, between becoming a model of inclusive, technically competent regulation or falling victim to regulatory capture an institutional compromise. My last point on this is that I want to thank everybody in the fintech and crypto ecosystem that has come together. A couple of days ago, there was a impromptu roundtable town hall kind of conversation that was set up, and that was brilliant. My hope and prayer is that we can have the same thing with policymakers and regulators sooner rather than later. Asanteni sana, looking forward to having this conversation continuously. Cheers.